Welcome to the Cookbook, a new series where we talk about decks, brews, and how to play your favorite CEDH decks. Today, I'm I have awesome co-hosts, Alana and Ashani. How y'all doing?
Hello, hello, hello. It is
Hello, friend.
an early morning and I have my monster. We're gonna talk about my favorite deck. So
Yeah, that's true. A monster to talk about a monster. I love it. So today we're going to be talking about the Rogsai. The Rogsai. We're going over specifically Alana's My Little Dummy, Grixis pile of good cards. This is Rograkh, Son of Rograkh, and Silas, Renn, Secret Adept. Rograkh is a little zero drop commander that is the only commander you usually cast. Is that correct?
you'd be surprised.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Silas has text.
Silas has text. Yeah, Silas does have text, and sometimes you've like sacrificed or people have killed your Rog or whatever, and 3 mana is cheaper than four mana for Rog 3 times. So you'd be
Facts.
surprised.
Facts. Facts. So what does like this deck do? What does this deck do?
I mean, this deck, it just takes advantage of a lot of the most busted things in the format. And it kind of turns them up a little bit because you get like it turns Mox Hammer into a Mox Ruby, right? Is the easiest example. And then
Mm-hmm.
it turns Fierce Swat, Deflecting Swat into free spells. Like it's literally free. And that is like kind of the basis of the deck. And then the rest of it is just kind of like a storm combo. I wouldn't necessarily call it storm. It's more combo, but you're always ending with like a breach combo or like an oracle combo. It's not really storm, but like it feels like storm. You get to do a lot of weird lines compared to like T and K, where T and K is very vanilla, like here's my breach, here's my oracle, like I found them after grinding. And this deck can like do a lot of like explosive weird things where it's like storm, right? You turn cards into mana into cards. So
Mm-hmm. And Shawnee, you hate this deck, right?
Absolutely.
you do like
Absolutely.
you
This
What?
do get a lot of hate when you play this deck. Like it
I do.
happens.
I do. The deck is silly. As Alana said, is a deck where you get to play all the free spells, you turn them on turn one, you make dummy amounts of mana from calling the weak to dark ritual to what's the red one? Infernal Plunge. You can go from a zero board state and make like 10 mana with wrong.
Yeah,
It's
What
it's
is this,
ridiculous.
Kennen?
it's actually kind of obscene, like how many things Rograkh turns on just by
Yeah,
being a 0 mana creature. Like if you're less experienced in the format, you'd be like, oh, so Silas is like the focus, right? It's like no, not at all.
no.
Hmm.
Like it makes a lot of mana. I think is easily one of the best wheel decks where you can go random
Hmm.
seven get there.
Yes,
Um
absolutely.
it has a game plan where a lot of players want to say, oh, you put a stack piece into play and wrong side get blown up. And
Mm-hmm.
yes and no. It gets to play that timing
Yeah,
game.
it
Like it can
depends.
sit there. Like Rock can sit there, it's gonna get attacked, but when it picks it is the window to go off, it has multiple attempts. And
Yeah,
then you have the extra turns to keep going. It's it's a well built deck.
yeah, my favorite statement about like Windows and speed and like yes, it's like one of the fastest decks, but Zane always says like speed is a privilege. Like you don't like you don't just go off on turn two with like your opponents like are expecting you and they all like left open their mana, right? It's like it's just like okay, you want to 3v1 me, I'm just gonna pass the turn. Like that's fine. Like
Mm-hmm. I'm looking
It's
at this lit. I'm looking at
yeah.
it right now, and like some of the things that are like immediately stand out to me is like cards like Conqueror's Flail, um,
it's
and
like
Defense
yeah,
Grid. Right?
yeah.
Are we trying to like throw one of these out and then throw like a wheel or something out there?
It depends. Like, defense grid is like kind of your, oh, I have Grand Abolisher at home, right? Like, please don't interact with me.
Mm-hmm.
Because artifacts are pretty hard to counter. They're almost as hard to counter as creatures. Conch Flail is kind of the same vein, except I like Conch Flail a little less. I go back and forth on Conch Flail because like the moment you go to equip it to a creature, they can, if they have creature removal, but they didn't have stack interaction, they can, remove the creature. And that's like, it can be a 4 mana blowout. But if you like played it on previous turn, it's 2 mana blowout. Like I go back and forth on it. Sometimes it's really good into like the heavy Ristic pods, right? They're like everyone is just drawing, and you're like, okay, all you blue decks, you have all this stack interaction. I'm just gonna equip Conch Flail and then you can't do anything. So
That makes a lot of sense. I'm looking at this is like so I don't know. This deck has so many tools at its disposal. It seems like it's super, super complicated. Like, would you recommend this deck for someone who's newer to CEDH?
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I wouldn't even recommend it for seasoned players.
I wouldn't either. It's a very like it rewards deck mastery more so than any other deck I know.
Yeah.
And even myself, like when I go on breaks of like playing different decks and then coming back to this deck, I am worse with it. I just like I'm like, oh yeah, wow, this deck demands a lot of you. Which is like it may be a reason to not play it, honestly, because I think like T and K gives you to a similar like consistency and power level without like the complexity because you have no fallback plan, like right, like if you keep a bad hand, if like you get blown out, you kind of lose. Like when you lose hard with this deck, not always, but like more so than other decks.
There's some cards in this deck that I think deserve some like attention because it can be really complicated playing this style of deck. Two of the cards that stand out in my mind the most are Necropotence and Ad Nauseam. I think Necropotence more than Ad Nauseam because Necropotence you have to decide if you're gonna go for like a big Necro and hope to hit like a Born Upon the Wind, or
Yeah.
Final Fortune.
Necro is one of the highest skill ceiling cards probably in the deck. It's if the player is really good, Necro is very, very scary. If the player doesn't play with Necro very often, it's a learning experience for sure.
Yeah.
Like it kind of changes a lot of things. Like it adds the discard exile, right? So like it makes breach lines a little awkward if like you have a bunch of cards and try to discard them with LED, they're gone, right? Like if you try and wheel, like they're all gone, they're all out of your graveyard. Your graveyard is usually like important to you. Um, eh, yeah, there are those decision points where it's like, do I go like 10 here and then wait? How much mana do I have open when I'm doing it? Like how likely is it, like you said, to hit Final Fortune or Born? Like you can do weird things with Necro. Like if someone like silences you, you can go to your end step and then clean up, and then the silence effect gets cleared. And because you discarded cards and clean up, you get priority back from Necro. There's there's a lot of weird things with Necro, but it's like one of the most powerful cards in the deck. So
All right, guys, I got the ruling for why this works. So 514.1 says first, if the active player's hand contains more than their maximum hand size, normally 7, they discard enough cards to reduce their hand size to that number. This is a turn-based action that doesn't use the stack. So we want to make sure that one, we have more than 7 cards, which we do because Necropotence and Adnos both add more than those number of cards usually. Specifically in this case, Necropotence is going to have a clause where whenever you discard a card, there's a triggered ability put on the stack, and that triggered ability is for that card to get exiled, but it's still in your graveyard for a moment, right? So because we're in the cleanup step, in the first part of that, we have to discard. The second part of the cleanup step, again, we don't have priority yet until these two things happen. The all damage marked on permanence is removed, and all end of turn effects and this turn effects end. So those two things happen at the same time. Now we've discarded a card, we have a trigger on the stack. All of the first parts of the cleanup step have happened. All of the effects that go until the end of turn have ended. So normally players don't receive priority in this step, and no spells can be put on the stack. However, there is a ruling exception. 514.3a says, at this point, this game checks to see if any state-based actions would be performed, or Any triggered abilities are waiting to be put onto the stack, including those that trigger at the beginning of the next cleanup step. If so, those state-based actions are performed. Then those triggered abilities are put on the stack. Then the active player gets priority. Players may cast spells and activate abilities. Once the stack is empty and all players pass in succession, another cleanup step begins. So there are some decks that are notorious for using this. This one of them is the Get Rock Monster. Loves to do end step hand sculpting things. We'll get into that another time. But for this Necropotence thing, it allows us to get priority back. And with our graveyards full, we can cast a bunch of cards. We can cast Born Upon the Wind to be able to use to cast an Underworld Breach into a cleanup step Underworld Breach line, which could be super, super cool. It also allows us to start, if we get Born Upon a Wind to resolve, it allows us to do a bunch of things. We can cast Wheels again. We can do all of these things because we can then respond at instant speed to the triggered ability of Necropotence. Very, very cool thing. And I wanted to go in that just for a second because this is a really, really tricky ruling, and I didn't want us to skip past that. So let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming. And we're back. Yeah, it's so, yeah, Necropotence is crazy. I have seen a couple of pilots for Rograkh do like really crazy Necro lines. You mentioned Zane earlier. Zane is an insane
Zane is a very good Rograkh player, yes.
And in the Mox Masters Invitational last year, he did some awesome stuff with Born Upon the Wind and was able to just like piece together these amazing wins.
Yes, I need a call out here. When Born Upon the Wind was spoiled, I was like, damn, this is really good card for Necro decks, and everyone was like a little like everyone was like hesitant. They're like, no, like it's okay, like it's decent. But everyone was like a little bit like, oh, it's decent. I'm like, are you sure? Like, I think this is crazy for a Necro deck. And now everyone's like, oh yeah, this card's insane. I'm like, thanks guys, thank you so much.
Sweet.
Born Upon a Wind made Necro disturbing. It's some players just always have it. And also with additional Final Fortune, it does makes it crazy.
Yeah, it's
you
like
you can even with Born Ristic Study and not Born Ristic Study, Born Necro and Breach, it doesn't matter because you just respond to the Necro triggers and exile the same cards. Because the Necro is a trigger. So it's when you start getting into the complicated Necro lines, there's a cool thing that normally doesn't happen if you get the holy trinity of Necro, Hardfell, and Born. You just get to play the game.
I have never gotten to do that, but that sounds incredibly fun.
That's the holy grail.
Like you mentioned Necro and Adnaz, Alex, but like Horn of Harnfell is crazy.
Busted card.
I genuinely don't remember the last time I've cast the front side of Berkey because Horn is just very good. It's an artifact, so it's hard to counter. And if you have it out and you've just wheeled, you can in like none of the cards in your hand you really need. You can discard all of them, and you suddenly your wheel has given you 14 cards. Obviously it loses to Dranith, but like it's very powerful.
And I think
one of my favorite cards in the deck, honestly.
I think one of the really strong things about this deck is we mentioned how fast it can make mana, and like it feels like you're just really trying to find the payoff. Like
absolutely
right, like you have the mana is usually always there, and like Bergy is an amazing card for this kind of deck because it's like, okay, I don't have the mana, Bergy helps with that. Oh, I don't need the mana, I have the backside. Like, okay, sweet.
Yes. Yeah. More often than not, the backside is just like will get you to it. Like they're like sometimes you have like the worst Nas line, but you can make 5 mana and you just play Horn, and then you discard like most of your Nas and you get to see like your whole deck. It's really funny actually.
That seems like a great way to double your Nas hand.
Yeah, there was I had the worst Nas. I think it was CCU2, just like the absolutely the worst Nas. But I could make 5 mana, or no, I could make 8 mana. Grim Tutor for Horn, play Horn, discard like my entire Nas and see the rest of my deck, and manually assemble Oracle with Horn. And then like the card is obscene.
Gross. Let's go into some test hands. Let's see what these hands look like. Um, like, is this even close to keepable? No, right?
This isn't
No,
keepable at all. Yeah,
we have to
you don't have
run.
a starter source, and yeah, it's
Okay.
tempting, right? Because you have like the no. We'll just go in
What
there.
about this? What about this hand? No lands, but
Um, so you
Is
get
it a DT?
to
Okay.
this is interesting actually.
yeah,
So
this is a very interesting hand.
because you can like you can Rog, Mox Amber, Mox Opal, like LED, cast the Grim Monolith. And then next
Okay.
turn, you get to potentially DT, but then you don't have a lot of colored source, but you can crack the LED
Can you
in
just DT
response
for
to the
brain
T.
freeze or not brain freeze for breach? Hold on.
You'd be worried
You're not
about
gonna have
card.
enough
You don't have
cards.
enough cards in graveyard, I
Yeah.
think. So
Okay.
you would.
Let's. Oh, we got to. Okay, we draw. We're just gonna
We,
play this in. We're gonna play this in. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, we can lead on our artifacts and our Grim Monolith, and like then we have Red Blast up, which is actually pretty nice if someone wants to like try and Ristic or something. Like, yeah, this
Uh,
hand suddenly became very
don't.
good.
What the hell? Do we Okay. Do we DT for?
I don't think I want to DT in past turn because everyone already like thinks this deck is
Yeah.
scary.
Already scary. So
If
put a huge
If
target.
you yeah, if you like DT path, everyone's gonna be like, that's fascinating. I'm going to keep like just play land path and like hold up my swan song. So
there is so I as a person who doesn't play this deck, my initial inclination for this hand is to do all of this stuff, cast DT, maybe using the Grim, maybe using the Grim.
I think that's
Mm,
incredibly greedy.
um, if I'm going to DT here, I could crack the LED for triple black and get
And
Necro
Nas.
Get
or
Nas.
Nas. Yeah.
I would Nas instead of Necro.
I would Nas instead of Necro. You don't have enough
Okay.
like permanent mana for Necro. Necro is really
Okay.
risky here.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
that is a play. You're leaning
That
hard into a mind break trap, but if they don't have it, you
I was
don't
gonna
care.
yeah, like yeah,
we still have the Red Blast online, right? For
you
this.
no, you have to
That's true.
crack your LED, right? So
Oh, LED first. Oh yeah, for the Nas.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
but you
like
float the red. He
it
might be right.
it's very all in, right? Like so this is like
Yeah.
where more like newer pilots may get blown out. Like this is definitely a line you can take. And if your read on the table is that they have nothing, or like you're going first, right? And no one has played
Yeah.
a land or anything, like you're like,
Oh yeah, same.
I lose the free interaction, like, and I'm okay with that, then you can definitely take this line. Right, like
Mhm.
if you're in a pod where like you think it's never getting better, right? Like maybe you're in a double like stacks pod with a control deck, right? Like that's like a worst nightmare, right? You have two stack players playing stacks pieces, and then you have a control player who's like, ah, cool, there's a rule of law. I'm gonna counter literally anything you do because you can't interact with me. Um, so if that's the case, and you know it's early in the game, I could see taking this line. Um, but I usually like to lean in more to value pieces just because people are so like targeted on you, right? So like maybe a wheel, like if this is turn one,
A
maybe,
wheel.
right? Yeah, maybe a
Yeah.
wheel, but like you have enough mana for Nas, so maybe a Nas. Like it depends on your read on the table. Like some people will just counter a wheel, is the same as they'll counter a Nas from Rog. So uh, it's you kind of have to read the table a little bit.
Okay.
But
What would you so would you just pass here?
I think I would just pass here usually. Like if I'm going like maybe like people have already developed a little bit, I'm just like okay, I'm just gonna pass. And then like next turn you could DT for like a Ristic Study or a Ring or like something else. Or if they read on the table is that everyone has tapped out for I don't know anything. Like you could just do the Nas line next turn.
Okay.
I
Let's see
like
what the
I really want to have the Red Blast up for like something, right? Like
okay.
I
Yeah.
don't want to just
This
throw. I just don't want to throw it away.
yeah, this line gives us Red Blast or Days. Like I like what this does. So we can just draw and we get a Mount Doom. I don't know if this helps us at all, but in
I
here,
would always like if you're thinking about nosing, I would always think about playing your land, because you might not want that color, right? Because
oh,
you'll probably almost certainly get another land from Nos. So
okay.
if you can afford to, like, don't play your land up. But if you do need like the extra mana for protection or whatever else in your hand, then play like right. If it was an island, I'd probably play it because then we have Days and Red Blast. So
hmm hmm
um,
So here we Demcon or not Demcon. We DT for a value piece, or do you think we're doing Nas here? If we don't have the read, like let's say people have mana up.
The awkward part is we still have to clack LED here to Nas, right? So
Mhm.
it's a bit hard. This hand does kind of say all in on Nas, so if we're gonna do it, I do it turn one.
Mhm.
It's really hard, right? Like since we did path, I probably would try and go for value piece because that's the
So
line we decided to take. Ristic study is
okay,
by far the best one, right? Like
okay, sure. So if we're doing Ristic, then we can just play our Mount
then we
Doom,
play Mount Doom, yeah, because then we can
right?
hold up red blast, yeah. Like someone's like, okay, counting Ristic study, okay, I'm gonna red blast that, like
Yeah. It does get a little awkward though, right? Because none of these
Yeah,
cards say blue mana for
you
Ristic.
played it wrong. Yeah, you kind of sequenced it wrong. You had to use the
Yeah.
opal.
So we do.
Yeah, you have to do it that
Yeah.
way.
So
Roll the two
if we're gonna
colorless.
we're gonna do
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, float a
If you're playing
colorless.
as the Ristic
Yeah,
study,
cast the Ristic. Okay,
you have to do it, and then red and Mox Hammer is always for red blast, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then we go here. 1, 2, 3. So we have to tap the Grim.
Correct.
Yeah,
Got it.
which
Got it.
is fine.
Which is
Our
fine.
city of traders should also be in the graveyard.
Yeah. Okay, so then this is our board state. And now this is just kind of like us just playing red blast for whenever the red blast is relevant.
Yeah,
And just
yeah,
hopefully drawing cards to get us there.
yeah. Like it really depends on your read on the table, right? Like I don't think there's anything wrong with going all in on the Nas line on like
Mhm.
turn one. However, like we're top decking, right? Like like I said, there's no fallback plan. So like if you're okay with just hard losing on turn one, if someone has the free interaction, then like that's okay. And sometimes you're not okay with that, right? Like sometimes you're like, I'm in a pod where like let's say you're in like a T and K, and then like I don't know, like a Dargo Thrasius. They're not really going to play stacks pieces, right, for the most part. So like T and K might play Oppo or like, but nothing like hard, nothing, no rule of laws, nothing, no thorns, nothing like that, no artifact turning off. Those are the pods where like playing for value can be really nice. Um, Whereas like if there are pods that are going to try and lock you down, the turn one Nas seems more appealing to me. So
Okay. So I'm gonna replay this hand. We kept. Oh, we got the City Traders. Sweet. Should I be playing Rockside first?
um
No.
no, if you have Mox Hammer, you probably want to play the Mox Hammer first. Sometimes like people will, if you play Rog first and you play Mox Hammer, they'll respond and be like, oh, I'm gonna deadly Rog your Rog. Like it's
Yeah.
happened to me
Oh, sure.
before. Yeah.
Okay. So then Rog.
So at least
Um,
if you cast the Mox Amber first, you at least get to respond to the creature removal with tapping the Mox Amber, right?
yeah. Yeah. Opal LED. Tap this for a Grim. And now in this, we're going super greed here. So this is
Yeah,
tapping this.
if you hit M for Mox, it'll give you the mana counter. It's just nice to
Oh
check
yeah.
your
Oh, for
mana.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now we have two colorless, and we're gonna crack this to add 3 black,
Yep.
floating with the DT on the stack. We're gonna look for ad nauseum, and then we will cast the ad nauseum.
Yep.
All right, so I'm gonna move these cards away, except for the Mox Amber. So if we're starting at 40 life, we have Snap.
Yeah, you can down arrow, up arrow
I
while you're
can.
doing
Oh,
it.
sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bergie.
But lots of goldfishing Nas hands for me in Moxfield, so I got you.
Yeah. Fair. Fair.
Yeah, like this, like if I see this in a game, I'm incredibly sad, right? Like this is terrible.
Yeah, this
Right?
is a terrible knock.
Like
Okay.
this is
Do we just stop? Is
absolutely
that
not. No,
No.
you're all in now. You have no backup plan. Like you have to hope that it gets better. The intent is nice, the mana vault is nice, but the mana vault really helps, but we need a little bit more. Yeah, this is one of the worst noses I've seen in a long time. Jeez.
Hold on. Stop. No,
Okay,
stop.
so no, well we know that's there, but
We're not that card. So you're at 5. You're at 5.
maybe just shuffle the deck, and then we don't know what the next card
okay?
is.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Yeah, this doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything, but you're just gonna keep interaction and pass a turn. Play, at least I think. You can play the block off
I'm thinking
Ragavan.
about, yeah, like what we get to play Ragavan and then keep like Force Negation, Force of Will, Mind Break Trap, a land, the intent probably, the
Yeah,
swamp.
the intent is better than the
Here,
grid.
can you separate out a few cards like Force of Will, Force Negation?
Yeah.
Um, let's see, we have a Mox Opal, so we need to turn our Mox Opal on, so we probably do want to keep the Mana Vault. So we probably want to play the Mana Vault over the Ragavan. We'll keep the SWAT. We'll keep. So we exile the Badlands. We probably just want to keep the Polluted Delta is fine. Even like maybe the City of Brass. I'm worried about the City of Brass because if we get more than one turn, it's gonna do too much damage to us.
You do
Yeah.
much damage, yeah.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're playing the Mana Vault, so I think you just play the Mana, and then we're not keeping the Ragavan. I think that we need the Mana Vault more to turn our mobile back on.
Okay.
And then replace
And
the Mana Vault
then
with the Bergie.
and then we only have 4 mana, right?
Yeah. The City of Traders we still have, but we're gonna second. We have a lot of colorless mana.
Yeah, we could keep the Bergie over the. We're not keeping the Ragavan. We keep the Bergie because then we can horn away the interaction we
Yeah.
don't use. And I think I just want to keep the intent. Grim does too much damage to us. Grasp is depends on what decks are on the table for Grasp, but it's also a 3 mana tutor, so I don't think I'm into it. And
Okay.
this is quite bad. This
Yeah,
is
that was a bad loss.
this is terrible.
But you're
So
not dead though, because it's turn one.
yeah,
So that
you're
was
not dead. You do have
a
enough
saving grace.
you do have enough
Yeah.
interaction to probably get to your turn, almost certainly.
Yeah.
Okay. So this goes to our. These are all cards that are in our
The
hand.
problem the problem also with this Naz is that what you have kept is basically face up to the table.
Yeah.
So good players will like be like, what cards are not in there? Okay, I'm gonna write the cards down you kept. And so like your plan can be like a little face up now.
Yeah. So for
But we
here,
do, yeah, we just pass turn. We can say like, I don't know, we have to force a neg like or force a neg like a Ristic Study maybe. Um,
okay. Force. Are we just exiling the force of will here?
yeah, because
Right.
I'd rather just have the
Yeah.
Mind Break Trap.
Yeah.
And then yeah, we go to our turn and hope.
Hope and a dream. All right. So this is a Ristic Study. Not bad. Okay. So from here, are we just full send the backside of Bergie, or what do you think?
No,
Absolutely.
we could in
We could play the
breach.
Ristic Study. We could intent breach.
I don't remember what we pitched, but yeah.
I mean, we
If you think
can.
there's another turn, the Ristic Study is a whole lot better. Can you draw more cards?
Yeah, it really depends on. This is where it depends on the landscape of the game,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Like Ristic Study. If you think not a lot of people like if no one played creatures and you're not getting attacked, Ristic Study seems pretty good. You can buy another turn potentially.
Mm-hmm.
If people did play creatures and there's a high possibility you're dying on the next turn. You can intent for breach is not bad. You can like intent. It turns off your SWAT, which is what I don't like.
Yeah, I was
That's
thinking the
true.
same thing.
They know you have that. So
So yeah, so
I guess
like
it's just Harnfell.
it's just Harnfell, which is like awkward. And then like intent, we don't pitch. Like I want to like pitch. I think I want to pitch this Mind Break Trap first.
First, yeah.
Okay,
So we can
so
do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have a colorless floating from the city,
yeah,
and then yeah, that.
and so we pitch this. We exile Springleaf Drum and a Simian Spirit Guide.
Damn, this is tragic,
And not
honestly.
good.
So we
You
what?
need
We
to
pitch
pray to the
pitch
Nos God
the
higher. You
pitch
need
the
to get your
land.
Nos better.
Yeah, yeah, I pitched the land. We probably hit a land off Harnfell. Jessica's Will is nice.
That's better.
Okay,
We
so
don't
there's
have
a
enough mana for it, which is sad. We can
yeah.
filter our colorless into colored mana with
Oh,
Springleaf
better.
Drum. Ristic Study is in our hand, correct?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so we can pitch Ristic Study. We hit our land, so
We
that
haven't
gives
played a land.
us.
We haven't played a land.
Yeah,
So
that
this
gives us 3 mana for Jessica's Will, but then we can filter a spring. Yeah, I like that. So we can play land.
Okay.
And then Jessica's
See.
Will.
Here.
Let's
Colorless.
say that someone tries to interact and we swat just for, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's say someone has like 6 cards in hand.
Mhm.
So we get 6 red and we exile top 3.
1, 2. Oops, this went to the wrong pile. 1, 2, and 3. We got a Wish Claw and a Final
That's
Fortune.
pretty good. I think Breach just
You're
wins
cooking.
from here. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Breach just wins from here. I think you
You
can
go
Springleaf Drum
Yeah.
to make the black.
Yeah. Springleaf Drum for the black.
Depending on how many artifacts your opponents have, you could Wish Claw for Dockside.
Dockside. And it gives you
Uh,
intent.
and then Intent for Breach, and then you can replay Rog from the graveyard, Intent for like LED, etc. I think there's like a Grim Tutor
Yeah.
maybe in the graveyard. Like from here, it's pretty deterministic.
Yeah.
It depends on if we get to this point, right? Like when goldfishing, it's hard to be like, oh, like they had it, right? Like they had the piece of
Yeah.
interaction that stops me. So
Sure. So I am gonna walk through this line real fast. So I'm gonna be the very best. Sorry. Okay, so in this line with these cards, we're able to filter a red into the Springleaf Drum, tap the Springleaf Drum and the Rograkh to make a black. From there, we can cash this Wishclaw Talisman.
yep.
And then we can activate the Wishclaw Talisman. Oops, wrong direction. Giving it to a random person. And this can give us, depending on how much mana we have, we can give us a Dockside.
It really depends on like what what our opponents did, right? Like let's say Dockside. I usually like to be mean to myself and go fishing. So let's say like our opponents only played 2 artifacts and the Wish Claw gives them another one. So let's say Dockside just +1, like it makes 3
Okay,
choices, right?
sure, that's fine.
Which is fine.
Yeah. Okay, so and it also provides like maybe a more realistic like thing, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
we're
It depends, right? Like, did our opponents like just say I don't care about Dockside and play into it? Like, their analysis was terrible, blah blah blah, or like
yeah.
like or like were they responsible? Like, oh, their analysis was terrible. We need to not play into Dockside. Like, it all depends.
Yeah. So from here we can go.
Before we do anything, I just want to see our. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're intending for Breach, but
We have a lot of cards engraved. Let's see.
yeah.
Let's view all. We have a City Traders, Deflecting Swat, Jessica's Will, Ristic, Polluted Delta, Mindbreak Trap, Force of Will, Force of Nig, Ragavan, Arid Mesa, Snap.
Okay, we do have Snap, but we don't have enough mana. I was just curious. We don't have a pedal or anything.
Necro. We don't have a pedal or anything. We have an LED.
Oh, we do have an
Oh,
LED.
okay.
Oh,
Oh, cool.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool.
how we cast the Nas.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Okay,
I just thought because there are like when your mana is really tight and you're going from breach lines, you need to think like, oh, yes, I can get breach out, but do I have 0 mana and nothing to do once breach is out, right? Which is why I just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So then from here we can use the last 2 treasures, sacrificing our Dockside, getting our Underworld Breach, put Underworld Breach on the stack. They have the Mindbreak Trap. We cast Pact of Negation.
Yeah. Lucky hits here.
Lucky hits. Okay, and then from here,
Pyro first. Get my Final Fortune.
we don't have any
we
more
don't
mana.
have any mana.
Oh, we have no red. Okay, my bad.
Yeah. We
Okay.
used all our mana to tutor and cast. Yeah. So now we can LED.
guess
We can do the breach
LED.
thing.
Yeah, LED here. And then what's cool about this is that if we want, we can crack the LED for 3 red.
I would always like as a thing to anyone. I would always think about Beseju when you're doing breach lines. I would always think about Otawara. I would always think about any interaction. Like what like will someone endurance like if you're endurance here like gets packed in negation, but like you have to think of like the most common things that interact with breach. Like I like to think about Beseju and Otawara because those are very hard to interact with, right? So like right here we can't if someone has it we can't really play around it. Like we cast LED right and then they immediately Otawara or Beseju our breach and we have no mana for Deflecting Swat, because you can't free cast Deflecting Swat out of your graveyard.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, like if they know, they know, and they have us here. If they have that, right? If they have the Beseju, they got us.
Mm-hmm.
If for some reason they hold it, I would still play around it. Like my first crack for LED, we have so many cards in graveyard, we can
Yeah.
afford to like crack for red. So like we always
Yeah.
have 3 red up for Deflecting Spot, and then we crack for black. We go get our Brain Freeze. We crack again for blue, etc. Brain Freeze ourselves. We can Oracle.
Yeah.
Those are always the scariest ones, but they do otherwise. Like I can't. It's very hard to interact with those. Like
I like this. I like this a lot. Yeah, so this is like one of those, I think one of those really important lessons of you might think you just have it, and there's so many pieces of interaction that like your play pattern is really important, especially like I could see this happening in a game, like in a tournament, there's a lot of pressure. And then you'll think about the day you watch the cookbook with Alana, Ashani, and Alex, and oh yeah, play the LED first and crack it for 3 red so you're deflecting Swat online.
yeah,
Um,
like it depends. Like some like players misplay their interactions sometimes. Like it happens. Like there's always something you're dead to for the most part. Like
yeah.
there's very few guaranteed lines.
Mhm.
Like and if your opponent has that, they have it. That like too bad. That's card games, right? So
Mhm.
I
And so,
I have
go
a
ahead.
tip for if you are new to Ad Nauseam, and there's a few things I have been taught along the way where if the card you're going for, Alana taught me this one, makes less mana than Dockside, get Dockside.
correct.
Sometimes you get really tunnel vision on stuff like, oh, you can go get Calling the Wind to set the Rograkh, and it gives you 4 mana. Just if Dockside makes more than 4, always go for Dockside. After also Naws. Always try to have black or red mana after your Naws.
Yeah,
Because most of your rituals cost black or red.
yeah. Most of
So
your
if you
stuff leads into
yeah,
black and red for sure.
Mm,
so if you can nod and make black or red after, it's always preferred than blue.
Yeah, blue
mhm,
is kind of
Thus,
like your finisher color, right? Like you do need to make blue eventually, but it won't get you there generally.
it won't get you there. Yeah. So thus, if you're new to the strategy, and also Grixis, that just goes across the board for Nas.
mhm.
I
Perfect.
think those are 2 important tips. I think.
Yeah, I think like even when you're not nosing, like Dockside should always be on the forefront of your mind. Dockside is one of the strongest cards in the format. When you're tutoring, you're like, does Dockside do like if I need mana, Dockside should be like the first thing you think of. Like how much does Dockside make? Like you should in this deck, you should always just be cognizant of how much it makes. Even from your opponents, like because this deck feeds Dockside like crazy. So
Mhm.
you just have to be aware. Like my opponent could go off with Dockside before me, and suddenly they're the faster deck, right? Like
Mhm, mhm.
it's like a slight downside to the deck. I don't think like you ever like play around it because I don't you don't set yourself back just because oh maybe they have Dockside. You just hope like you can interact with them, right?
Very true.
Um, Another card that I just like saw that I was like, oh, this also is a complicated card is Mnemonic Betrayal.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
right? Because yeah.
Yeah, it is.
uh yeah, so one of the things I want people to walk away with from like this entire thing while while we cook is how a lot of these what makes this deck complicated isn't necessarily playing like the most powerful cards, whatever. It's the ceiling of each card. So mnemonic betrayal, ad nauseum, necropotence, Yawgmoth's will.
Dogwill,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. These cards are have such high ceilings and incredible floors.
Yes,
Like,
yes, they can be quite bad.
yeah, yeah.
You can piece together some really weird stuff with this deck. Like you can go from like really bad lines to like suddenly, oh, I've found a way to get to Breach or Oracle, or like I've found a way to like take your Oracle, or there's been games where I couldn't Breach, just like because I think I got exiled earlier. So yeah, I got early exiled to Jessica's Will just by chance. I was like, okay. and I Yawgmoth will. My graveyard is not great, and then the Yawgmoth will lead into a Monomica Trail, which then I was playing with everyone's graveyard, and we pieced together this like really random like Praetor's Graphs and Oracle, and then I think I also Praetor's Graphed someone's like consultation because like mine were gone. You can do a lot of weird things.
Weird stormlines.
Yeah, weird stormlines with this deck, just because of the cards that have in it. And if you're interested in reading more about it, Bryant's primer on the deck is very good. He's very good at the
Definitely
deck.
worth reading.
Yeah, this iteration of the deck is a lot of his like work, and Viverus, Alex work, Mitch's work. They worked on the deck a lot. Zane helped work on the deck. It's a lot. It's just it's very. I feel like it's very flexible now. You still can hard lose. Like you can still hard lose with this deck, and it feels terrible. And I think it's why like people don't like playing the deck usually, because when you lose, sometimes you just really lose, which doesn't feel good. It is mentally draining. But there are
Yeah.
so many pivot lines to this deck.
And
And
go on, sorry.
and like it's like, oh yeah, people say like, oh, the one stacks piece you lose, and like usually when you see stacks pieces of this deck, it's it's harder to go through them, right? Like in this version, there's not a lot of like non-creature bounce. There's like Rollick, the Chain of Vapor, the Odawara, the Snap, but for the most part, you don't have too much permanent removal. And so like going through stacks pieces is much harder than just going around them with Oracle, right? Like there are a lot of ways to just go around most stacks pieces with Oracle. Sometimes there's too many stack pieces and it doesn't matter. Like if you're in a very stacky meta, there's no reason you can't just slot in Cycrift. Like I personally usually only use it as like a one thing bounce, so I took it out, but there's no reason you can't just be on Cycrift to like reset. But you can always pivot to old Oracle, right? Like here's my Oracle, here's my Forbidden Tutor, and usually that gets around most stack spaces except for like Rule of Law. But even then, you can Taint Impact on someone's end step and cast Oracle. Like there's so many pivot lines to this deck.
Dang, that's crazy.
Like
This deck is awesome.
and like actually the Lord of the Rings set gave us Bowmasters, and for against like heavy creature decks, like Bowmaster Wheel is so strong. And I do think this is
Yeah.
one of the best wheel decks. So I think it is the best wheel deck,
It
honestly.
is the best wheel deck, yeah.
Yeah, I
Sad
can
but
see that.
true. Sad but true.
Yeah, being the thing. Awesome. Well, I appreciate both of you. If you didn't know, people watching this later in life, they woke up very early, and I appreciate for them for joining so early.
Of course.
Yeah. And yeah, so what do you guys think we should do next for the cookbook? Let us know in the comments. We appreciate your time. Make sure if you haven't subscribed, please click that link down below. We appreciate it. Do you all have anything to say to these wonderful people before we go?
I think you should do Kennen next. That's what I think.
Oh no.
Kidding. Oh yeah.
Don't think Sisse, but
Ooh,
sure.
I do like
Ooh,
Sisse. I am a
little bit
Sisse
Sisse.
enjoyer. If you
I
like,
need to learn Sisse, so
I
maybe
know
we can
I
talk
know
that
for
one.
sure you should get Malcolm if you do Sisse. He will talk about that deck endlessly. I have talked to him about that
Yeah.
deck endlessly. I am a Sisse enjoyer. I love playing Sisse. So
Yeah, that might be the next deck. But Kennen, we'll do Kennen.
I think you should do Sisse because like people are always very scared of it, and like if you understand the lines, it's a lot easier to interact with.
Educate the people.
Educate the
Absolutely.
people. Yes.
Yes.
Sick. Awesome. Well, thank y'all. We will hopefully catch y'all on the next time we play on the cookbook. Peace out.
Bye.